To begin the process, you copy the Value Add MSFT USMT folder to a central server on which you want to store all user information and settings. Then, after you have mapped a network drive to the folder, you run the scan state program on the source computer. On the target Windows XP computer, you run the load state program. This transfers the user settings stored on the mapped drive to the new XP machine. To view the switch options available to the scan state and the load state programs, you use the /? switch with the appropriate program name. By default, the FastWizard and the USMT migrate Appearance Settings, Action Settings, Internet Settings, Email Settings, Folder Settings and Contents, Microsoft Office Settings. The appearance settings that the FastWizard and USMT enable you to migrate to a Windows XP Professional computer include the screensaver, fonts, taskbar, sound, regional option, and office settings that a user has configured on a computer running an earlier version of Windows. Action settings are settings that determine how a user can interact with a GUI. For example, an action setting may determine whether a user needs to click or double-click a specific item on an interface to access a resource. The action settings that the FastWizard and USMT migrate to Windows XP Professional computers by default include folder options, mouse and keyboard settings, and accessibility options. The FastWizard and USMT migrate users' Internet Explorer, phone and modem, dial-up connection, favorites folder, and cookies folder settings to Windows XP by default. The FastWizard and USMT migrate users' Microsoft Outlook or Microsoft Outlook Express settings and stores to Windows XP by default. For example, they migrate to Windows XP settings for a user's connection to a mail server and specific views, mail rules, local mail, and contacts that a user has configured on the computer running an earlier version of Windows. The FastWizard and USMT migrate to Windows XP users' My Documents, My Pictures, Favorites, and Desktop folders from a computer running an earlier version of Windows. The FastWizard and USMT migrate common Microsoft Office file types, for example, doc, dot, ppt, and wpd files, to Windows XP Professional computers by default. They also migrate settings for Microsoft Office applications such as Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. However, they don't migrate these applications, so you need to install the applications separately on the Windows XP computer. USMT, unlike the FastWizard, migrates the classic Windows desktop when it migrates a user's state to a Windows XP computer. You typically use the FastWizard to migrate an individual user's files and settings to a computer that has a clean installation of Windows XP. You use the USMT for large-scale deployment of Windows XP and for configuring more advanced settings. To use the FastWizard to migrate settings from an older computer, you create a wizard disk on a computer with Windows XP Professional installed. Then use this disk to access the wizard on the older Windows computer. Alternatively, you can insert the Windows XP Professional installation CD into the CD-ROM drive of the older Windows computer, select Perform Additional Tasks, and then select Transfer Files and Settings. Before you transfer a user's files and settings to a Windows XP Professional computer, you need a server or removable medium with enough space to store the data you want to transfer. You also need a blank, formatted floppy disk on which to copy the FastWizard or the Windows XP Professional installation CD. Finally, you need the account name and password of the user whose files and settings you want to transfer. What is migrated when you use the FastWizard? Suppose you want to migrate user settings from a legacy computer to a Windows XP computer with the FastWizard. On the Windows XP computer, you want to access the Files and Settings Transfer Wizard so that you can create a disk to run the FastWizard on the legacy computer. So you select Start, All Programs, Accessories, System Tools, Files and Settings Transfer Wizard. On the first page of the Files and Settings Transfer Wizard, you click Next to start using the wizard. On the Which Computer Is This page of the wizard, you need to indicate which computer you're on, the one to transfer files from or the one to transfer files to. In this case, you're on the Windows XP computer you want to transfer files to, so you click Next to accept the default New Computer setting. On the next page of the wizard, you want to create a wizard disk on a floppy disk. Because the I want to create a wizard disk in the following drive drop-down list box specifies the floppy disk by default, you click Next to accept the setting. You insert a blank floppy disk and click OK in the Files and Settings Transfer Wizard dialog box. The wizard disk is created on the floppy drive. When the disk is created, the Files and Settings Transfer Wizard instructs you to run Fast Wizard on the legacy computer. You want to run the Fast Wizard on the legacy computer. Select Start, Run, and then type /fastwiz in the open drop-down list box. Then click OK and Next. On the Select a Transfer Method page of the wizard, you want to choose a location from where to copy the files. In this case, you want to choose the floppy drive, so you leave the default floppy drive or other removable media radio button selected, and you click Next. Now you need to specify what you want to transfer. In this case, it's Settings, so you click Next to accept the default Settings Only selection. The wizard then transfers the files from the legacy computer to the floppy disk. It then instructs you to return to your Windows XP computer to continue the file transfer, and you click Finish. At the Windows XP computer, you click Next to continue the Files and Settings Transfer Wizard. The wizard asks you to specify a location from where to transfer files. In this case, it's the floppy disk, so you leave the default floppy drive or other removable media setting selected, and you click Next. The wizard indicates that you need to insert the floppy disk, and when you click OK, the files are copied to the Windows XP computer. The settings are successfully transferred from the legacy computer to the Windows XP computer. You click Finish to complete the wizard. When changing to Windows XP Professional, you can upgrade an existing operating system, thereby preserving existing user settings, applications, and documents. To avoid the threat posed by problems with an operating system upgrade, you need to plan the upgrade carefully. You can enter data directly as the system is upgraded to Windows XP, or you can use an unattended upgrade. If you want to configure a multi-boot system, you need to install the operating systems from oldest to newest. When you are unable to upgrade users' computers, you may need to migrate user settings using the FAST or the USMT. You can uninstall Windows XP if an upgrade from Windows 98 or Windows ME is unsuccessful.